Hello everyone, we are live from Black Hat 2022. I'm Dave Gruber, Principal Analyst at the Enterprise Strategy Group, and I'm here today with Steve Daheb, Senior Technology and Marketing Leader from Tanium. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be with you.
Excellent. Today we're going to talk about my favorite subject. It's a particular focus of my coverage area, which is endpoint. And we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of endpoint management and endpoint security. And we're going to talk about some convergence trends that are taking place there.
Absolutely.
And I'm happy to explore this topic with you today from Tanium. You guys have been focused on this a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so I do a lot of research in the endpoint area. And one of the common themes that comes up is the general interest in the overlapping, intertwined world of endpoint management and endpoint security. And I regularly pose the question to organizations about people's interest in the convergence of bringing those together, given that they're so intertwined, that those teams work so closely together. But before we dig into that subject, let's sort of talk about the state of endpoint today in the world. Endpoint still makes up a really large portion of the attack surface in most organizations today. And of course, over the last few years, as people have moved about the world and worked from different places, the world of endpoint has expanded pretty dramatically from those trends. And so just the sheer number of endpoint devices, the sheer diversity of endpoint devices, and how and where and whom operates within them has all changed a lot. Tell me a little bit about your perspective on sort of what the growth of endpoint has looked like sort of in the market, and then we'll dig into some of these other topics.
Absolutely.
A bit. Yeah,
I think, like you said, it's been exponential. I mean, first we had the digital transformation that was happening before pre-COVID. You know, enterprises were embracing digital transformation to fundamentally change how they really created value for their customers. And you saw it in every single industry, whether it was financial services or healthcare or manufacturing or automotive. And so you saw the rise of cloud and cloud-based applications. You saw the rise of things like IoT, which is another type of endpoint, as you mentioned, the diversity in the type of endpoint. So you sort of had that growth. And then you had this phenomenon of work from anywhere. I was at CMO Citrix a while ago, and we were talking about work is not a place. It's sort of wherever you find inspiration. But that's really true nowadays. And so that just sort of, eliminated what you would think of the four walls of the enterprise and the traditional perimeter. It sounds crazy. We used to wake up in the morning, shower, put on clothes that weren't stretchy, drive to an office and work. And now, we sort of work from anywhere. And so that, coupled with the trends around digital transformation, has created an explosion in endpoints. And then to your point, we've had these traditional workspaces, workstations, laptops, mobile devices. Now it's IoT, OT, sensors, cloud-based containers, virtual servers, sensors. And all of these now have created to, unfortunately, it's not only the greatest surface area of all time from a network perspective, but the greatest attack surface of all time. And so it's put our companies more at risks. And so there's different things we need to contemplate and sort of maybe change how we've been addressing things in order to better protect ourselves.
Yeah, so many people tell me that sort of traditional tools are struggling to keep up with the needs there, both from a management perspective and a security perspective. One of the sort of key elements is around the simple discovery of assets, the amount of net new connected assets that evolve and are part and portion of the operation now grows virtually daily, right? So there's a sort of a new focus on asset discovery, asset inventory, but not just where they are and what they are, but what are they doing? Who's using them? What's running on them in those environments? And as the old saying, overused saying goes, you can't secure what you can't see. So the ability to see those, profile those, understand where they are, what they are, manage them, and then hand that off to the security team to secure those. It's definitely a kind of a new set of challenges for those organizations. These security teams that I talk to, management teams, they're depending on guys like you, endpoint vendors, endpoint management vendors, security vendors, to help them solve these problems. Talk about like some of the basics about how you're thinking about up-leveling, upscaling the mechanisms that people use
Yeah,
today and what's
absolutely.
required there.
Yeah, I think we're taking a fundamentally different approach. I think, it's interesting, we're here at Black Hat and you see the energy and you see all the companies, and I think you think about security and it's more top of mind than ever. We're going to spend $160 billion this year on cybersecurity solutions at all. But if you ask anybody, so do you feel any more safer today than you did before? The answer is going to be no. And I think one of the issues is because our approach has been flawed, or it hasn't solved the problem. I mean, every 11 seconds, there's a ransomware attack. Something needs to change. And so what we've had is different point solutions. Some might provide you visibility, and again, they might not give you it real time. And we should also talk about not just understanding where the endpoints are, but how quickly you can discover them. But then you actually have to go to a different tool in order to remediate or patch or take action. And so for us, we really see a convergence of the different point solutions into a single platform. And I know platform's sort of like the new black, people are talking about it again. But really dig in and understand, is this purpose built? Is it a single console? Or these things working together can actually do visibility and remediation with one click? And you had said something that's really interesting. You had talked about the operations team going to the security team. And I think that's another issue. Like, we know silos aren't good for business. And we know that silos, I think, like when you look at data and other things, have really broken down. And so we get an aggregated view. We get a real sense of how our business is performing. And on the endpoint, it tends to still be siloed. And so you have an operations team, you have a security team, you have a risk and compliance team, and that's one of the problems. And so they might all be deploying their own point solutions. And as a CIO or a CISO, I have to come in and patch together data from multiple distinct point solutions in order to get a view that sometimes might be incomplete or inaccurate or stale. And so I think that's a problem statement that's really resonating with the customers we serve today.
Yeah, I hear that. I see that in my research. One of the symptoms of that, or maybe the outcomes of those challenges, are that organizations are telling me that they're reevaluating their endpoint security solutions every year.
Yeah.
Like this is like the continuation of disappointment year after year after year, right?
Yeah, we got to try something different.
Right, we got to try something different. So let's talk about different a little bit. So many of the endpoint companies have expanded their portfolios today, and endpoint security vendors, many of the endpoint management vendors as well. This notion of putting more things in the box or in the platform, not a new idea, makes a ton of sense. Many security vendors are in process, right, of putting the pieces together. It makes sense to analyze more data, get a broader perspective, leverage threat intel consistently throughout the process along the way. But it is a bit of a journey for most organizations because people are starting with multiple tools and these silos of information. So let's talk about that journey for a minute. So from the starting point, let's say I'm an organization and I've been running an endpoint security solution, an endpoint management solution, and now I'm worried about asset discovery. So I have my security, I have my endpoint management, I have patching, I have vulnerability assessment, right? And the list goes on. So there's a lot of tools involved in this picture here. What's the journey look like for me to go from here to a more integrated approach?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it is a journey for many customers. There's some customers that will go in and we'll take sort of a greenfield, platform approach. And you're right, it's not just about being greater than the sum of the parts. It's how you do the things underneath, right? So you might have asset discovery and inventory, or threat hunting, or risk and compliance, but how do you do these things? And imagine if you could identify all your endpoints. Imagine if you can identify all of them in seconds. Imagine if you can go layers deep to understand hidden files or files that might be nested. And imagine if you can actually do that remediation all in real time. And so it's not just about the aggregation of the pieces, but how you do that. And so we provide a platform, but to your point, where there's a customer who's, look, I made an investment in an endpoint security product, it's like, Are you sure you're running that product on all your devices? In fact, in 85% of the enterprises we work with, we find that up to 20% of their endpoints are undiscovered or missing, unmanaged. And so we can actually add value to solutions a customer may have already made an investment in by coming in and providing a visibility piece. And then over time, we have customers that take advantage of more of the functionality and capabilities we offer. But that's part of the journey. We can come in and say, okay, how do we provide you full visibility, real time into your environment, so we can actually optimize the investments you've already made. And that's been successful for us. And then we've had other customers who said, we want to get out of stitching together these point solutions. We want a common control plane, common set of data, common taxonomy across our different organizations. And so they choose to deploy the platform. And it's a mix.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me. I have this notion of what I commonly refer to as mini platforms, because sort of the ultimate put it all in one platform and everything in your world is one console, one platform. Just not a realistic agenda. But it is realistic for people to consolidate portions of their portfolio and sort of shrink the amount of complexity in the environment, bring the data together, and more holistically manage what makes sense to manage collectively together, because it's all not going to be managed together in a common piece. And it's funny, as I walked around the show floor, I actually saw some banners of claims and things that it's like one console for all of your security needs. And I have to look at that and honestly call BS to that on a little bit, because it's just not a viable approach to what we're doing. But the point they're trying to make is, hey, we're bringing things together. We're making some portion of your estate more holistic, more integrated, easier to manage, and less swivel chair for the security analyst and the IT analysts that are involved as part of the process. So I applaud Tanium for going in that direction, helping people bring the pieces together. But also, I want to pull on a couple of threads that you just talked about. They're really, really important pieces of the conversation. And one was this point you just made about undiscovered or rogue assets that are along the way. And you have to sort of take a moment to say what that really is all about. Things spin up and down all the time in environments. People plug in, unplug, changing. New devices, new services. There's a constant, the amount of change that's going on minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day is huge right now.
Absolutely.
And so there's this, the other thing that you said was real time. And so I want to dig into what that really means, because real time is real time. And so I want to make sure, first of all, that by real time you mean real time or
seconds.
close to real time. But, so you mean seconds, there's real time and this, but I think what we're talking about here is realistically, a few seconds away or a minute away. It's not roll it all together. Hours, days, analyze the data, make decisions. Now you've already aged out a day or two or whatever it is, right? Like dig into that for a minute. Because you think differently about that at Tanium.
Yeah, we really do. It's almost like, I was trying to think of an analogy. Maybe it's not the best one, but imagine if some store just got robbed and you pull up to it and you're like, hey, pull me the surveillance tape. And they give you the tape from like a week ago. That's like, it's not going to help me, sort of like addressing this. And it's the same thing around, protecting this ever-changing, constantly changing attack surface that you talked about. And so when we talk about being able to see all endpoint types and identify them in seconds, that's what we mean. It's not about going and collecting data and taking hours and days and then everybody sort of gathering around from the different groups and looking at it and trying to figure out what remediation tactic they should take. Because by then, the bad guys moved on. He's like, hey, well, you guys are doing that. I'm moving laterally. I'm doing something else. And so when you're able to discover in real time, then there's no unknown assets or unknown endpoints to take advantage of.
Sure. So it reduces the attack surface because of that,
so
right?
we can sort of.
I got to digest that for a minute though, because if you think about everything else involved in the process here, like asset discovery and EDR and all the other data analytics solutions and things, they're pushing massive amounts of data up a pipe somewhere to a store and an analytics engine.
Yeah.
And there's a natural latency built into
Yeah.
that. And while there's a lot of solution providers are like, no, our stuff's current. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
current.
And by the way, there's a cost with moving around all that data too. That's a separate one.
Well, that's
Yeah.
a point we should discuss further too. But so I just, it's a little hard actually to process the quote real-time nature that you're speaking of, because it seems almost a little impossible that you could
It's
that you
funny.
could query the entire estate, the entire network, the entire infrastructure to get a real like now
Yeah.
snapshot of what's.
That
Is that what
is-
you're saying?
Yeah, that is our architecture. And it's kind of funny, our founder and CEO, Orion Hindawi, will talk about it. He goes, we do what some people just assume is impossible. And it's things that we all discuss and say, wouldn't it make more sense if we just sort of had agents running on the endpoints and pulled directly from that, versus sort of aggregating it all in a database and then loading that database somewhere and going and querying that database. And you're like, yeah, it'd probably make more sense to do it that way. And that's what we've done. So we have a very lightweight agent. We have this thing we call linear chain protocol, but it's basically a communications protocol, and we can communicate directly with the endpoints and pull real time from the endpoints and do so in seconds. So we're sort of eliminating the big, we can, of course, maintain a database and store data for historical, but we can get you that real-time view just going directly to the endpoint source. And so it's just a fundamentally different approach, but like all, technology you and I were talking about, we've been doing this for a long time. These breakthroughs come along, and once they happen, you're like, God, why didn't we do it like that, like the whole time?
I feel like I want to apply this idea to a whole bunch of different use cases in endpoint management and in endpoint security.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're talking about, we talk about problems we have to solve, pain points, and now you're talking about an approach, a mechanism that has fundamentally different capability or different abilities that now you can apply in different scenarios, whether it's a potential, and think about all the use cases that were supported in compliance and governance, right? So where like a little audit crisis or whatever, I need to know now. There's an attack going on real time right now. I need to know if I'm vulnerable, if I am, where, when, why, who's affected. The number of use cases across the board here, it feels like there's lots of places to apply that. When you talked about platform, which again, often overused word for me, but can you apply this across these use cases?
Yeah, we do. I mean, in fact, again, it's not just about the discovery, but we remediate in the same way. So again, we can push critical security patches or critical security updates or controls in seconds. And by the way, when we discover, we can know what version of software they are. Have we found a known vulnerability? Is their firewall enabled or disabled? Do they have antivirus turned on? I mean, there's a lot we can actually gather from it. And again, so the same way we can sort of pull, we're able to use that same technology to push. And again, this idea of, and I know sort of single console, but being able to sort of see everything and remediate without having to go to a different tool or a different group is important. And that's sort of, part of the response. That's part of what you want to be able to do. If I have to shift to a different tool in order to remediate, that just puts me at exposure for a longer period of time. And so, yeah, we absolutely apply that same architecture and those same principles to sort of defending against the attacks as well.
So that feels like a super responsive mechanism, applies to a lot of reasons. I also feel like there's an orchestration layer that has to sit on top of this at some level, right? That's as a couple of things popped into my head as we're talking about this, like, with great power comes this Spider-Man kind of reference here.
Great responsibility.
Comes great responsibility. Like
Uncle Ben. I was at Comic-Con like 2 weeks ago, so I am a Marvel Comics geek.
So you're a geek anyway.
The fact that you just said that just made my day. Thank you.
So, so with all that, so you have a lot of powerful capabilities. You can do a lot of things fast, real time. So it's a lot of speed. Doesn't involve a lot of data movement around. Feels like a really powerful piece of the equation as well. But still, we have to deal with policy and the orchestration of all these actions and capabilities. Is that part of the platform, or is that specific to use cases? Where does that fit in?
No, I mean, we can obviously enforce policies. I mean, so one of the things we do is help ensure compliance, and and then we can be ever vigilant to make sure that we stay within that compliance. So when you sort of really dig down into the pieces and think about, do you want to have everything in there, or what are those core things around identifying, remediating, patching, ongoing compliance and vigilance are things we do. And we live in a heterogeneous ecosystem. We work with a lot of great partners, and we can exist with a lot of other tools as well. But there's just some core capabilities that made sense for us to aggregate into a single, I don't want to say platform, I don't know what other word there is.
That's all right. It's fine. It's fine.
But that's what we do.
Nice. Hey, I had the opportunity, and this was like not a formal thing. I was sitting having lunch with some of your customers, and they didn't know who I was. We were just talking about what you guys were doing, and in fact, it was at a different conference. It wasn't related to you guys, and people got talking about Tanium, and so I always perk up and I listen when people are talking about anybody, just because I want to know, what are people's perceptions, what are they doing? So I asked a few random questions, and I got this guy talking about, I bought Tanium for this use case and this use case, but I use Tanium for all these other things that are not listed on your website. They're not things that you talk about regularly, which really got me thinking about, okay,
how bad is their marketing?
Well, no, it's not that at all. It was about what is this tech?
Yeah, what's possible?
What's possible with this technology? Like, tell me because I know you obviously speak with your customers on a regular basis. Was that a one-off case, or is that?
No, it's funny. We just had Zurich Insurance just did an incredible case study video that will be launching soon, and he's been an 8-year customer, and he talked about sort of buying us initially for the visibility, and then understanding the set of capabilities and saying today, sort of, Tanium is a game changer for me, and it does all these things I would have done in a multiple different point solution. So that's something we're absolutely seeing. And again, from a customer perspective, we can go in and land with the particular, we can sort of show, here are all the capabilities. Yeah. And by the way, seeing is believing in this platform. I mean, high 80s, 90% conversion rates when we get into POCs, and they understand the breadth and depth of what we can do. But again, there might be some greenfield instances where people are going to adopt the entire platform, or they purchase us for a specific use case, understanding that those capabilities are there. And it's exciting. I'd say, historically, we've served some of the most security conscious companies in the world. So majority of the Fortune 100, all 5 departments of defense, our intelligence agencies, those of our allies, 30 million endpoints. And a couple years ago, we deployed Tanium Cloud. We made that available, and we're seeing a rapid amount of growth. Just looking at year over year, a 2x increase in number of mid-market, mid-enterprise companies as well. Yeah. And so, we're starting to take that technology to an even more diverse set of folks. And I think they go, hey, man, if it's good enough for some of these guys.
Yeah, it's an all-star list. Yeah.
Then it's going to work for us. And again, they can start with the specific use case and grow. And that's actually the great thing about a platform. It's simply enabling another module. It's not loading something else. It's not, having to sort of add something else and do some integration. It's fully contained, which is nice. And since we've architected it as a platform, we can continue to add capabilities over time, which is a great method to do that for our customers, right?
Great.
There's no forklift upgrades or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, so interesting. So there's some specific use cases that you regularly talk about where people commonly deploy different parts of Tanium and the Tanium platform and modules within it to execute. And then there's sort of all these other sort of loosely defined use cases that sit on the side beyond that. So at some level, it feels to me like it's not a question of, okay, I'm going to run Tanium instead of these other mechanisms a security product that I have in place today, another endpoint management product, and a compliance product, a risk product. Maybe you do. Maybe you replace some, and I'm sure you do, replace tech along the way. But there feels like there's potentially this whole other value track about what the platform can offer, specifically related to this real-time idea.
Yeah.
It's like when you need it, I need it now, I need it fast. Like when things are happening and I need to know and I need to move and I need to react. That feels like a mechanism that, there's response mechanisms built into a lot of things, but it's not that.
It's different, and I think you make a great point. I mean, can we go in and displace tech? Yes, but is there a really powerful story about Tanium and? It really doesn't have to be an either or. There is a way we can add value to everybody's environment, regardless of what they're driving today, through the asset discovery, client management. And then, I want to adopt risk and compliance. I want to adopt threat hunting. I want to adopt sensitive data monitoring. So we've sort of taken all these, point modules and have abstracted them to these solution level areas that we engage our customers with. But you're right, we can, really play a powerful role as a foundational element to any management and security approach. And I think that's what differentiates us.
Yeah, it sounds like I'll call it a tool, because sometimes I think about versatile things like this, a tool. It sounds like a tool I'd want to have in my toolbox, right?
Yeah,
it's like when you buy a tool to do one thing, but they find that you use it for a lot of things, and wow, it's really useful, and this is my go-to.
Yeah. When stuff's going down, you'd want to have this. You'd want to have this, and I think that's where I think that's why we have the customers we do, and we continue to grow. By the way, I appreciate that customer story. Turned out great. You had me scared there for a little bit. I was like, oh man,
and it was
what's coming?
I have to say, it was just such a random conversation that I had
we didn't
too.
Plant that guy.
No, and the guy, he just went off on this storyline about, oh my God, I love this product, I love this company, I love what it can do, and he went on and on. I was like, wow.
Yeah, it's a testament.
Wow, it got my attention there.
It's a testament to what our team has developed. It's it really is the product is special, and it's fun to be able to go out there and solve real solutions. My father was a CIO, so I grew up in the Bay Area and born and raised, and I saw the impact. I mean, he would get those calls at 3 o'clock in the morning because something crashed or there was an issue. And so for me, sort of had that empathy where I think we come every day thinking, how do we help provide certainty in uncertain times? How do we make our customers' environments more safe? And so, it's a special place from that perspective.
Well said, well said. Steve, thank you so much. I enjoyed the conversation today.
It.
We're broadcasting live from Black Hat 2022. It's fun talking about endpoint. If you want to find out more, reach out to Tanium and you can find out all the details.
Great,
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.